he just has common sense, and he gets paid hundreds of thousands of dollars just purely because people don't have common sense. He says if people had common sense, he'd be out of the job.
Being sensible is such an amazing virtue. It really helps you navigate life without falling into traps.
So I'm just going to get this little cat. I'm going to stick it right there. And my house is feng shuied now. I've got my little frogs. And that's it.
That intuitive sense about spiritual things also is very important, because what happens is you don't get deceived by every snake oil salesman that's trying to sell you something.
And and of course there's Sato, Rajo, Tamo in everything. So there's Sato, Rajo, Tamo thought patterns, Sato, Rajo, Tamo relationships, Sato, Rajo, Tamo technology. Much love and blessings, and welcome back to Spiritual Sense. Today we're actually doing an episode on what spiritual sense actually is. This is something that is very deep. We're going to be talking about 6 different signs of spiritual sense, breaking some myths about the quick fix society that we live in, that everything should be so fast and we should get everything we want right away. What does it actually mean to have spiritual sense, and how can we use it in our life? So welcome, sit back, enjoy, get a drink if you like, a nice glass of water or something, nice and cozy, and let us dive into this wonderful episode. Hello Shireen, nice to see you.
Hello, Michael. Hello. Are you having a great day?
I'm having a fabulous day. Always a pleasure to be with you and to do the podcast. This is a fascinating topic. In fact, we changed the name of the podcast from Spiritual Recharge to Spiritual Sense. I remember actually I was sitting in the car park in Hawaii looking over the ocean, talking to Shireen on the phone about something, and it just came to me, spiritual sense, because Shireen is a very sensible person relative to most people in the world. So I just thought,
How about relative to you, Michael?
Relative to me as well, that's true. Just relative to me, and to a lot of other people. But so I thought, no, spiritual sense. It has a double meaning, and we're gonna get into that today. So welcome.
I want to talk about being sensible. I really feel that sensible is an underrated virtue. When you think about someone being sensible, or sensible shoes or something, right? Mm-hmm. They think, they're just utilitarian. But sensible, having sense, being sensible is such an amazing virtue. It really helps you navigate life without falling into traps.
It really does. I have one of my business mentors, Dan Kennedy, who I've learned a lot of his courses and books. He just has common sense, and he gets paid hundreds of thousands of dollars just purely because people don't have common sense. He says if people had common sense, he'd be out of the job. But people don't have common sense, so they'll have to pay him large amounts of money for things that are really obvious. So common sense is definitely completely lacking. What is the difference between common sense and spiritual sense?
Common sense is like the wisdom you gain with experience. If you have experience, and if you're really willing to learn from life's lessons, then you gain common sense, right? It's about navigating like regular things in life, right? Relationships, job, all of that. Spiritual sense really is very similar to common sense, but it is about navigating meaning in life, navigating deeper concepts in life, navigating what is happening with you, and what is happening you as a soul, where are you, right? How can you find lasting happiness? How can you find, why is it that we have to have virtues in our life? All of those things are about spiritual sense. So common sense, we need to navigate life. Spiritual sense, we need to navigate life, but to navigate deeper aspects of our life.
Well, seems most people are missing in both. This is a very important topic, isn't it?
One of the things I also feel about spiritual sense, which you pointed out recently, was that it's like a sixth sense, mm-hmm. right? Like you have an intuitive sense about spiritual things. And that intuitive sense about spiritual things also is very important, because what happens is you don't get deceived by every snake oil salesman that's trying to sell you something. Because a lot of people in India especially, right, there's so many gurus, so many people. There was this one guru who recently had to leave India because he was going to get arrested, and he was selling self-realization certificates for 10,000 rupees or something. And so obviously, if you want self-realization, you cannot get it in a certificate. And you can't get it by someone who's selling it to you for 10,000, seriously. But that's obvious to me, right? But obviously it wasn't obvious to all the people who paid him. And so
That's funny.
spiritual sense is an intuitive sense that you know that what it is that is spirituality, what it is that is eternal, what it is that is temporary, what is it that you can do to stay in your spirituality, to have self-realization, to have discovery, to have authentic meaning in your life, all of that. That is spiritual sense.
And to be able to tell the difference between snake oil salesman and the real McCoy, as they say.
Right, snake oil salesman and the real McCoy, absolutely.
It's but I mean, honestly, it surprises me some of the people I talk to sometimes, and the things that they listen to and the things that they believe, and it's causing harm, because I've done a lot of one-on-one sessions with people, and they come to me with these bizarre ideas that they watched on YouTube or something.
They're
It's
so
wrecking
random,
their
aren't
life,
they?
wrecking their life, and I'm like, is this doing you any good thinking about these things? And and they really like watch all this stuff and get caught up in it, and they don't have the discernment, the spiritual sense
Right.
discernment to tell the difference,
Another thing about spiritual sense, like common sense, it's very grounding. Because sometimes, in the guise of spirituality, people will start talking random things. I'm like, when will they stop talking, right? Like I meet people and I'm like, ninth dimension, this, that, this, and I'm thinking, what? Like,
Right.
how is that have any bearing on your life? Because it's as good as a science fiction movie, right? Why do you watch a movie? Why do you watch a science fiction movie? So you can escape.
Yeah.
Spiritual sense is not about escaping life. Spiritual sense is about grounding yourself in your life so you can actually have sustainable happiness, sustainable peace, sustainable things. Like, what are you gaining about thinking about ninth dimension?
The 94th dimension is even better.
Or 94th dimension, or any dimension.
But,
Like, let's fix this, let's fix this, let's
Right.
fix my life right here,
Yeah.
right now.
I was thinking about this the other day. Actually, I was in the hot tub having meditation, and I was thinking, I'm not sure why this came to my mind. Must have been listening to something. I was thinking about these people who learn levitation, right? In what way, if let's say you can levitate like 3 inches above the ground, like it's sort of cool thing to do. You could say it's cool, right? Because you can levitate. Okay, great. But
It is a cool thing to do, but it's a waste of time, really.
Let's be honest, right? But apart from it being cool, in what other way would it make any difference to someone's life? Because they might still be depressed and be able to levitate, or they might be a drug addict and levitate, or they might just not have any money but they can levitate. Oh, they might have terrible relationships but they can levitate. So what really matters in our life, really and honestly, is how do we feel fundamentally. This is the most important thing, is how do we feel, because if we feel depressed, everything else doesn't mean anything. And then are we doing something valuable with our life that we enjoy doing, that serves others, and are we having a meaningful life, and are we happy and healthy and wealthy? Health, wealth, happiness, and good vibrations, right? That's really what makes the big difference to somebody. And all these other
Right.
things, they're sort of like, peripheral, nice to have things that don't matter.
Right. So spiritual sense does not talk about the peripheral nice things to have. It's not about levitating. It's not about 94th dimension. It's not about any of those things. It's about how can I have health, wealth, happiness, peace, prosperity, good relationships. How can I navigate my life without doing drugs?
Right.
Without being an addict. Because it's not like I have a moral thing against addicts, right? It's not about morality. It's about it's not a good life. It's life in the pits. It's like a tamo pradhan life. It's a tamas life. a tamas life is a very low life, right? Because you're totally addicted to physical substances and you're not in touch with your spiritual core. And so that is, and at this point, it's a good time to talk about sattva, rajas, and tamas.
Right.
So sattva, this comes in the Bhagavad Gita a lot, and even in our teachings where we call it sato, rajo, tamo. It's Hindi versus Sanskrit. And so what happens is, like, sattva is like the highest thing, right? It's like very high quality, wisdom, joy, all of these things. So everything has a quality. Everything you do, everything you think, everything you read, everything you eat, everything has a quality. And so the highest quality is sattva. And so let's say in sattva quality, if you do things that have sattva quality, then your life has joy and wisdom and meaning and all of that. And then you have rajas. Rajas is where the passion, right? Like if you do sports or workout or all of that, which is good, it's not a bad thing, then your life has that. It has ambition and drive and all of these things. And then you have tamas, right? Tamas is you're doing drugs and you're doing, doing whatever you want with your life, sleeping away, being lazy, all of that. That is tamas. And so in tamas quality, when you do tamas things, your life is a very small life, and it's a very miserable life. So I don't know anyone who's an addict and who's happy, right? Even when they're on drugs, they're not happy. Because it just becomes an addiction. It doesn't become a nice, pleasurable thing to do. It's become something they escape, and then they feel more and more miserable, right? So spiritual sense is navigating your life so you actually are able to do enough sattva things that you have happiness and joy and wisdom and peace and all of those things in your life.
The closer we are to sattva, the more happiness and well-being there is. And and of course there's sato, rajo, tamo in everything, so there's sato, rajo,
Absolutely.
tamo thought patterns, sato, rajo, tamo relationships, sato, rajo, tamo technology, even sato, rajo, tamo drugs. There's not like drugs as a category and they're all the same. There's different kinds of drugs, different types of everything, and not that drugs are
I
sato.
don't know about drugs though. Where are sato drugs?
Well, people do, like psychoactive, psychedelic drugs for their own
I
learning.
still feel that that's not sattva.
And I'm not sure it's
Possibly
sato.
rajas. No, possibly it's not sattva for sure. Possibly rajas.
There's a
But
difference
if
between like
you're going
psychoactive drugs and like heroin and like the drugs that suppress people and make them.
Yes, so definitely heroin and stuff is tamas.
Yeah.
But psychoactive drugs, possibly rajas, but they're definitely not sattva.
No, not
because
sattva.
because sattva is only things where you have complete control.
Right.
You're not looking for any kind of drug to get
Right.
you out of wherever you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but rajas, maybe they are rajas drugs, I don't know, I didn't try them, don't want to try them, because you don't want to come to a point, because what happens is you think they're rajas drugs and you do them, right? If you start getting addicted to them, if you start, okay, let's say you have trauma, you want to solve your trauma and all of that, and it really helped, wonderful. But you have to be really careful that you don't become dependent on them, because very soon they become tamas.
Yeah, some drugs are addictive and others are not. But either way, it's the sato is a higher level thing where we're naturally feeling liberated, and this kind of ninth gate and 94 different dimensions and all these different things. What that is the naive inner child that's interested in that sort of thing. We all have a little inner child inside of us that's naive, right? And it's like, ooh, you see children, like they're like, oh wow, what's this and what's this, and they're like, oh wow, 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 wow. So that little child still is inside of us somewhere, and that's the part of people that goes, there's 99 different dimensions, and there's all these strange things flying around, and that they really like that, right? But as we heal our inner child and we kind of do the spiritual work and on ourselves, that's not pushing us forward and running us around. And then we go from that kind of like, oh wow, to, okay, how can I actually be happier? How can I sort out my life? How can I make changes in my life in a practical way?
Spiritual sense is not about psychoactive drugs, you're saying?
Psychoactive drugs.
Yes. It's a totally different department. Spiritual sense is like common sense. It's about us, without help from any physical thing, being able to navigate life through our own inner wisdom, our own spiritual wisdom, which is within each of us. We have that wisdom. It's innate to each one of us, that wisdom. And it's able to navigate life without any external aid.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need things. I mean, maybe some people need certain things. I'm not going to get involved in other people's lives. But spiritual sense is we can have common sense, high level consciousness and sort things out and look at them clearly and shine a light on them. So the next thing is the quest for the quick fix, right? I was just joking with Shireen before the podcast that we needed to print this out, right? Our notes, and I went on my computer to print it out through the Wi-Fi to my printer, and the printer said it was offline, and I was like, what the hell's going on here? Why isn't it? And I was like, why isn't it working? So I had to begrudgingly pick up my laptop, walk all the way just over there and plug it in with a cable. Gosh, it was just so tough. So I'm going to have therapy for that later on this week. But that's the sort of society we live in, isn't it? It's everything is just so immediate, it's so over the top. I mean, it's beyond belief if you think about the history of the world and what we have now compared to that. It's just incredible.
You know, if I think about things, right, I'm really grateful for modern technology. I'm really, really grateful. Every time I use the dishwasher, I'm eternally grateful I don't have to wash dishes. Every time I use my clothes washer, every time I use the dryer to dry my clothes, I love it, I love it, I love it. And every time I can actually use my iPhone for service, or even now, right? We're using so much technology to do this. And so I really love it. But what has happened is, because we are so used to technology and we're so used to everything happening instantly, that we have gone too far, right? We want everything instantly, right? Like if you're standing at a traffic light, you're 1 second, just, the light has turned green and you're 1 second looking somewhere, you'll hear a honk. It's like 1 second. It's like just 1 second, right? People don't even want, and then what? You're going, running. You're using this 1 second. Okay, let's say they're running, and 1 second, and what? It's like hurry up and wait, because somewhere else it's not like you're having a higher quality of life, right? If you want to make every second count, is your every second having a higher quality of life, right? Because let's say the dishwasher is really allowing me to have a higher quality of life.
It is. And the washing machine especially. I mean, I remember washing my clothes in India, because I was in India and I had to use a bucket. I was there for a long time. And I thought, oh my God, this is like a major mission. Just clean. And I couldn't do a good job of it either. They weren't properly clean even after all my hard work. And then they're all crumpled up. So yeah, these things make a big difference that we're dealing with.
So we need to ask ourselves this question with quick fixes and quick things, right? Is the quality of my life better? I'm hurrying, rushing, doing this. Because of this rushed energy, because of this, let me get everything right here, right now, is my quality of life better? And if the answer is no, then we shouldn't use them.
That's why I lock my phone and internet in a box for multiple hours of the day. Because what happens otherwise, I'm just being honest, is that I think, oh, I should buy this thing, I should get this thing. And if I just buy it there and then, often I'll regret it later on. So what I do is I just put things in a cart somewhere and don't do anything. And then normally when I come back at it, I realize I don't need half the stuff, and I would have impulsively bought it if I'd had the convenience to do it. And I think a lot of things in the modern world are like that. Because you're going to press the buttons. But in reality, it's a waste of time. We don't need it a lot of the time. And then we have to send things back to Amazon, or we have to take care of stuff. And and when I unplug the internet and everything's unplugged, then I can just sit there and have meditation, look at the clouds, and there's no like all that whole modern, I could do this, I could do that. It's all out. Shireen has more self-control than I do, so she doesn't need to do that sort of thing.
Sometimes I forget my phone and go places, just leave it somewhere. But here's the thing. What happens is, because we are so used to quick fixes, right? Quick things, right? We think spirituality can also be like that, right? Because there is a cultural obsession with quick fixes, because the zeitgeist is full of quick fixes, people think that, spirituality also, I can just go do this. And what happens is, let's say, I'll tell you how ridiculous this is. If I go to a personal trainer, and tell them, I go to a gym, personal trainer, and tell them, I want to lose weight. I want to lose 100 pounds by tomorrow, even if I want to lose 20 pounds by tomorrow. I want to lose 20 pounds by tomorrow. Will that happen? No. And no one is going to go ask them that question. Because they know that's a ridiculous expectation out of a gym and a trainer. But people have that kind of expectation with spiritual things. They really think one meditation will heal them. Or they can just attend something, once a month, and everything will be okay. Mm-hmm. Because they did it one time, sometime,
Or go on
it's
a
like
retreat.
Once a month, right? It's like, or go on one retreat and everything will be okay. Because it's like really getting a gym membership and not going to the gym. Once a month, if you go to the gym once a month, what's going to happen? Nothing.
Yeah. It's not enough. I think this is such a big deal. There's a lot of marketing around this where people say, get this special thing from like ancient Egypt or something, and it's gonna everything will be taken care of in one shot. That's kind of the messaging that a lot of people receive.
I know, right?
It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. I mean, if it did, then of course we would all go for it, but it actually doesn't work.
Last year sometime, someone sent me these little immortality strips or something. Like you put it somewhere, and I'm thinking, really? I don't think people just become immortal just like that. Just like you buy a product somewhere and you put a strip on, right? Because that's the other part of instant quick fixes, is spirituality has become a consumer product.
Yeah.
So everything that you can sell in the guise of spirituality, people sell, because that is the whole spiritual consumerism, right, has totally overtaken. And people are using all kinds of things to sell you stuff that, like, if you actually used common sense, you would understand, no, that's not going to work. Or even yoga pants, right? Who ever thought of $200 yoga pants?
It's fascinating.
Yoga is just...
yeah.
Right.
It's the whole yoga, the commodity of yoga has got really out of hand. There's totally fancy yoga mats, yoga pants. I mean, a lot of people are like, well, I might as well buy the best stuff, but it starts getting out of hand, doesn't it, gradually? And then you have this special candle that's got something in it, and it's $100 for a little candle, and it just starts to add up, and become a little bit over the top. It's the same with like the feng shui cats. You've seen the feng shui cats, or the French feng shui frogs and stuff like that. Like that's not like proper feng shui. Is like about the real energy and all these. It's a very detailed, deep thing. But there's like the commodity of it, where people buy these little cats, and they stick them in certain parts of the house depending on whatever belief they have. Oh, I'm not going to bother doing anything else in my space. I'm just going to get this little cat. I'm going to stick it right there. And then my house is feng shuied now. I've got my little frogs, and that's it.
Taking it further is, oh, just because I got a cat, now I'll be happier. Peace will come into my life, abundance will come into my life, whatever will come into my life, I'll feel healthy and all of that, right? And I feel, for us, right, for us, you and me, it's very easy to tell people, yeah, just sit down, think of mansion will manifest. Yeah, sit down, think of peace will come. Actually, sometimes peace does come if you think of peace. But mansion will manifest, this will come, that will come. It's very easy for us to do that, right? Because so many people are doing that. And they get more clicks and more views because that's what the world needs. That's what everyone is looking for. And so they give it to them and then they get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's harder for us to say there is spiritual sense. It's harder for us to say there is no quick fix. It's harder for us to do these things.
Yeah.
And if we are still saying it, it's because we care about you. You can't just go, you can't make spirituality a consumer product. You can't have, immortal strips, whatever. You can't do all of those things because it doesn't exist.
Yeah, this one pill that's going to make everything better, or this one. This is what I mean. Modern society, the whole premise of modern society is there's this one product, right? It's really, really powerful. It's very special. It's ancient. They've just discovered it. It's scientifically proven, right? And it's going to take care of all of your problems, and you can get it, for $497.97.
Only $497.
Exactly.
For the next 3 months, because it's going to become $1,500 afterwards.
Become $1,500, and you're going to get this bonus and this other bonus. And by the way, the sponsor of this video. This is the whole game, isn't it? So over the top. But so it's a lot harder for us to say straight up, look, you have to do some hard work on yourself, and this is not going to come automatically. We're losing out on more people watching our videos and stuff by talking about the real stuff, because there's tons of snake oil salesmen all over the place telling you that you're going to do these two things and everything will be totally fine. But it's not how it works, unfortunately. We're sorry to break the news to you. But then again, I'm sure everyone watching this already knows a lot of these things, really. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be.
Right. If they're this far into the podcast, they know.
Yeah.
That's not working.
No. So the next part of spiritual sense is why effort matters. Why we actually need to make some effort. Why we actually need to do some practices. So why do we need to do that instead of just taking a pill or getting some magic immortality strip that you stick on the back of your neck somewhere and it's all good to go? Well, how come we have to make any effort? This is unfair. This is unfair. Well, what's going on?
Right. They're spiritual muscles. I want you to think of the virtues and the powers, like the power of tolerance or the power to discern, the power to face. All of those are spiritual muscles. And if I want to work out, let's say I want to work out my biceps or triceps or hamstrings or whatever, right? I need to push them. I need to create some strength training, resilience against them. I need to push them, and then that muscle gets worked out. It's the same way with spiritual muscles, like, any of the virtues, right? Any of the virtues, like let's say dignity or self-sovereignty or any of them. They are spiritual muscles that need to be worked out. And so the best way I can describe is you have to put in the effort if you have to get your physical muscles to work out. It's the same way you have to put in effort to work out your spiritual muscles. And so that is why effort matters, because there is resistance, and through the resistance, then your muscle builds. So in the same way, when we do spiritual effort, then our spiritual muscles build.
Yeah, and then we get stronger.
And so, Yes, we get stronger. We get stronger. Because there is two aspects of effort, right? One aspect of effort is, oh yeah, I don't need to do this. It's all okay. I know, right? I have a lot of relatives and friends, right, who are not exactly into spirituality, and I try to tell them. They always ask me, "So what do you do?" And I tell them, "Oh, we are souls," and they say, "I know, I know."
The most dangerous four words in the English language are "I already know that." Right? I have to say this so many times to my students. If you catch yourself saying "I already know that," it is a very, very dangerous sign for your personal progress, right? Because it immediately just blocks off any interest in doing anything about it. Oh yeah, I already heard about that. I know I'm a spiritual being. Oh yeah, I know I need to invest money in the stock market. Oh yeah, whatever. And it's just, it just kills any effort straight off the bat, doesn't it? It's like immediate. It's like a death
Right,
button. It's like a death. You
right.
just press it and it's just wiped. So yeah, just wanted to share that. Be careful about those four words if you
Right.
hear yourself saying it.
So what happens is when we say spiritual effort, right? Why effort matters? We mean, yes, we know we are souls. Yes, we know we are spiritual beings having a human experience. We all know that. But when I make spiritual effort, sadhana, when I really sit down and come into the awareness of being a soul, and I keep practicing being a soul again and again and again and again, that is spiritual effort, and that is what decides our experience. Because without that effort, without that awareness, there is no experience. You will just stay in the I know category. You will not come into the experience category.
And it's just the experience that's the real thing, the real McCoy, the real deal. Because
Yeah.
that's when we actually
Because
have a feeling. It changes our consciousness, it changes our biology, it changes our lifestyle. It's a real different, it's a different life that we experience.
yeah, it is a different life. It's a different life. And experience, really, right? That's the one thing no one can take away from you, right? Tomorrow they'll prove that, immortality strips are like fake and all of your money will be gone and that will be taken away from you. Everything people can take away from you, but no one can take away your experiences because that's the one thing you can have. So if you put in the effort, the reward is so much, and that's the one thing no one can take away from you. Like Instagram, there's so many Instagram models, so many people making money off Instagram, this and that. Let's say tomorrow Instagram just totally combusts, or even if Instagram doesn't combust, let's say the electric grid goes, right? What happened to your Instagram? Nothing. So that quickly things can go from you. But experience, it cannot go. You will carry your experience life after life after life.
Yeah, it's becoming genuinely wealthy on the inside rather than just theoretically having nice ideas. It's going from book smarts, and intellectualism to real experience, and that's the greatest thing that we can give ourselves, really, is to come into the experience. And I mean, to be perfectly honest, I think the first couple of years of my spiritual life, I remember learning all these fascinating things like what we're talking about here. And I remember thinking, well, I know everything now. I mean, I know, like, because once you study something every day for a couple of years, like, you do know a lot of stuff, right? After a while, but I came to realize at the end of every year, I would reflect on my growth, and I'd think, actually, I'm not sure I really understood anything. I thought I knew it, and then the next year I'd look back and go, oh no, I'm not sure I really understood that either. And I would say every year that's gone past, because I've changed and learnt new things, I look back and think that my previous understanding was off. And now I've had deeper experiences and I'm on a different level. And that's probably going to keep on happening for the rest of my life, actually, because it's not just knowing about it intellectually. It's about whether or not we actually feel it and perceive the world in a new way as a result of what we know. So that is very important. Are we philosophers, just book smart philosophers, or are we yogis, enlightened beings having a real experience?
To be an enlightened being, you really need real experience.
And also, spiritual sense is where you take one thing and you go deep into it. Like, for example, I am a spiritual being. Someone's, oh yeah, whatever, what's next? What are we having for lunch? No. We think, no, hang on a minute, what does that imply, that I'm a spiritual being? And what would it feel like if I really believed that deeply in my being? And how would I see the world different? How would I see people different? Does it feel like to be eternal and immortal? These are extremely deep things that are like massive changes in perception. It's not just a few words on a page somewhere. So that's you take one thing and go deep, rather than lots and lots of random stuff. And what's next? Where's the next sort of special magical thing from ancient Egypt, or some hidden tablet that they found under the ground? Ooh, there's a special thing under the ground.
That really triggered you, huh, Michael?
Yeah. It didn't trigger me. It's just
this whole,
amused.
I never heard of this ancient Egypt thing.
No, I think what happened. This is. I'm just remembering a story. I had a friend of mine who learnt the meditation from me years ago, right? And then he said, "Oh yeah, I already know that. Whatever, right?" And then he was like, "But there's this special thing in Egypt. Oh my God, the ancient secrets from underneath the, in the pyramids or whatever, right?" And he was off on this thing, and then he became an alcoholic and all this stuff. And then finally he came back like 10, 15 years later and was like, please teach me this stuff, because my life's a mess and I want to actually experience it. And so he was just seduced by his naive inner child to go off on all these different directions. And he finally, to his credit, came back and realized that he needs to go deep rather than just chasing the unicorns across the sky. What's the next one?
The human desire for control.
The human desire for control. What does that mean?
I feel we are all trapped in many paradoxes. And one of the paradoxes we are trapped in is this desire for control. And the other paradoxes too, we'll get into the other paradoxes. Maybe we can have a whole podcast on how we are trapped in paradoxes. But this paradox of control is so strange. So one of the paradoxes of control is the more I try to control, the more things elude me. Right? The more, like let's say people, right? The more I try to control someone, the more they'll run away. If they're masochistic or something, maybe they'll stay around and let you control them, but otherwise they want to run away. The other thing about this paradox of control is that when we are trying to control so hard, right, everything around us, we are trying to control so hard, we miss out on the experience. What happens is we are trying to control physical things, while spirituality is an experience. It's something to be understood and something to be experienced.
So can you give an example?
So let's say I want to control everything in my life. Let's say I want to control my close relationships, right? Mm-hmm. And possibly you can control. There's a possibility, like let's say your husband or whatever, they will, or your wife, they'll do exactly what you're telling them. They'll always do exactly what you're telling them.
Who are these people? I've never come across anyone like that. I've tried to get people to do what I want, and it's never worked out so far, so I've given it up. But
right. Let's say even your children, let's say like someone who didn't have teenagers, of course, or they're still little, and then they will listen. But let's say even they're teenagers and they're still listening to you. And you can control them, right? But these are physical things. One thing you have to realize about this control is that it is a disease we have. All of us have this disease to some extent, right? Some extent there is disease going on. Whether it's small extent, big extent, sometimes it's pathological control where they really need psychiatric help, I feel. All of us want to control. And what we don't realize is that only when we let go do we experience. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to control physical things. You're trying to control people. You're trying to control what happens. And you cannot. You cannot control them. But forget about that you cannot control them. But you are missing out on beautiful spiritual experiences because you're busy trying to control physical things. Because when you let go, right, that is when the soul is free. It's like, why are you trying to control when you yourself can experience freedom when you let go? That is the paradox we are trapped in.
It's true, isn't it? When we try and control, well, for a start, it's very sketchy whether or not we can actually control things, because most of the time it's not possible, or it's only possible temporarily. We can't really control any people for long periods of time, and it's kind of a cruel thing to even try to do, really. Maybe children, they need to be looked after so they don't do things that harm them. But apart from that, trying to control friends and families is obviously a narcissistic thing to do. And then trying to control nature, good luck with that, because nature's nature's going to do what it does. And even trying to control ourselves is hard enough, right? We do need to try and control ourselves, but but it's really a very stressful thing, isn't it? Because we're trying to hold on. I need to make this the way I like it. But and that's not a spiritual state of grace and peace, is it? That whole
No, it's not spiritual sense.
No. So what do you do to release that neurotic control freak?
Okay, first you have to look at it, right? You have to acknowledge that I have a disease. I'm including myself with everyone else. I have a disease called control, and slowly you have to let it go. As much as possible, you have to let it go, because we are rational beings. We can look at our lives and we can say, this is a problem and I need to let it go, and let it go. We don't need psychiatrists, we don't need all of this, most of us don't. But we can let go, because in the letting go is the freedom, and in the freedom, who doesn't want freedom? Everyone wants freedom in life. So if you want freedom, why are you trying to control? Because you think you'll get something from control, but you actually get something from freedom. And the way to get freedom is letting go. So look at yourself honestly and tell yourself every day, 1%, 5%, I will let go of control, and by the end of the month, control will go away. At least it's manageable, where it's not wrecking my life.
All right. What a relief. I mean, even with the weather, right? The weather. If we say, oh, it shouldn't be cloudy, it shouldn't be sunny, it shouldn't be too hot, shouldn't be too cold, we're just causing ourselves stress, aren't we? Because we can't
stress.
control it. Oh, why is it raining today? This is so unfair. Oh, I was supposed to go out today. This is so unfair. Oh, poor me. Oh, the universe doesn't like me. That's it's not going to work. But if we can accept, the opposite of control is acceptance, isn't it? It's just allowing. It's being okay with what is rather than what we want it to be. And then we can say, you know what, it's raining, so I'm just going to wear a rain jacket, or I'm not going to go out, or I'll just do something else, right? So you can adjust to the reality of life rather than being stressed out about it. Or the same thing is true if we go to the store and we want to buy some stuff and they haven't got any, God forbid. Oh my God, my special mangoes, they haven't got any. Oh my God, my whole life is wrecked. We say, okay, fine, what can I do instead of having mangoes? Maybe I shouldn't have so many mangoes. I mean, we can just relax and say, that didn't work out the way I wanted it to, but there's something else happening instead. And people are the biggest one, aren't they, really? Where we think, why did she say that? Why did he say that? Why didn't they do this? How come this thing isn't done the way I wanted it to? We had an issue with the podcast recently where we wanted it up on a certain time, but our guy who edits the podcast, bless his heart, thank you very much, Trevor. there's floods where he is, right? There's flooding and his electricity is going out and all sorts of things. So what can you do? I mean, like, if there's 3 feet underwater and the electricity doesn't work, then we can get upset about it, or we can just say, okay, fair enough. Well, how can we readjust ourselves so we're ahead of the game in the future, where we do have some control, but we can't do anything about the situation there and then because it's out of our hands. So spiritual sense is recognizing what we can and what we can't control, but it's also important to control the things we can control, because
Right.
that's another thing, isn't it? We can actually control some things, and it's good that we do.
Right. But another aspect of the paradox of control is that we forget the journey, right? We are too focused on the destination, and we keep trying to control the destination. And we keep trying to control ourselves so that we get to the destination, but it really sometimes it doesn't matter. Let's say I'm sitting in traffic, and recently it happened to me. I'm sitting in traffic, and I was in the parking lot for 1 hour, right? Just because there was a fatality on the road. Sitting in traffic, and I could just sit and get totally upset, because if I have control issues, I would be totally upset and stressed by what's happening. But if I just realize that, okay, I can sit here and meditate, or I can sit at home and meditate, I can do both. So it's not about me getting home, it's not about the destination, but it is about me being able to meditate everywhere, anywhere. And so if I keep focusing on control, then I don't learn that skill of enjoying the journey, of saying, oh, can I meditate here? Can I meditate here? Can I meditate when someone is yelling at me? Can I do all of these things?
Right, and it's like anytime we want to control something and we can't control it, what comes up within us is either irritation, anger, or disappointment, or some sort of stress response, or even depression. Like, there's a whole range of negative emotions that can come up, and none of them are very pleasant, and it doesn't solve anything either, does it? Whereas what is, this is another, of course, spiritual sense, which we could talk about in more detail, but just related to this is that life is as it is, and there's benefit to things as they are. So control, when we're in control freak mode, we can't see any benefit in it being different from the way we think it should be, the way I want it to be. And if it's this way, then that's terrible, 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 and there's no benefit in any way whatsoever. But spiritual sense says, actually, it's beneficial the way it is and the way you want it to be. And it's not like that for a reason, and you just have to get over it and realize that the way it really is come up for your benefit and for some learning. So life is moving us through this strange, obstacle course, and it's there for the reason that it's there for our own well-being.
Right. And I somehow feel no one can move away from the obstacle course. It's like everyone will get that obstacle course. At some point or the other, everyone will. Like, let's say your hurdles, right? 400-meter hurdles. Every single runner will get at every whatever intervals, right? They have to go past the hurdle. And so it's the same with life, right? You think, oh, my life is wonderful, great. It's not going to be wonderful, great for too long, because everyone has to have, it's an up and down journey. I'm not wishing ill on people, really, but it is a journey of ups and downs. And the whole idea of spiritual sense is, how do I navigate the ups and downs of life without getting bent out of shape?
And part of that is to recognize that there is genuinely benefit in these challenging things, and that there are lessons for us, that we can come out better off because of those challenges. I mean, I can say from my own experience, many times in life I'm just cruising along, everything's fine, then I have some sort of obstacle or challenge, and I might respond to it with, like, why is this happening, and I don't like it. That actually might be my instant response. But then I say, no, hang on a minute, there has to be some benefit to this, and And once I'm forced to look at it and find the benefit, it turns out that I'm better off after that has happened than I was before it happened. And my only really control over this situation is how long is it going to take me to come to terms with what's going on. Am I going to fight it for unnecessary amounts of time and stress myself out, or am I just going to just say, okay, I surrender, let go, and then let me just deal with this and get the benefit from it? That's spiritual sense, isn't it? The quicker, if I can do that in a second, then I'm doing well. And if it takes me months and months, then I'm just basically completely out of hand, really, and off on my own trip. So we want to try and shorten the amount of time it takes for us to come to these realizations and then act in a healthy way, so we can glean all the blessings that come out the other side of these challenges.
Empathy. By listening, you give so much. You provide a safe place where others feel heard and understood, enabling them to find solutions. Your compassion shines as a beacon of hope, empowering those around you with clarity and confidence.
And by the way, if you're listening to this and you have a topic you'd like us to share, leave a comment, and we're happy to share whatever it is that you need, because after all, the whole podcast is for you. So tell us what you want, how we can help you out going forward. Yeah.